not education, not experience, not knowledge or intellectual horsepower. The book Emotional Intelligence starts with telling us that all of these things that we think of as measures and predictors of success really aren't. And we find that there's something else that makes a huge difference in how far we can go in our personal and professional lives. Now, let's make sure everyone's paying attention and remembers from last week. What is that? That extra something? Anybody? Awesome. Emotional intelligence. So if you'll recall, last week we spoke briefly about these two gentlemen, both geniuses, great scientific minds, but one of them had far more success in his professional career and what he did with it. And the difference there was emotional intelligence. So I'd like everyone to take just a moment very quickly and think about it, because we've all had this experience. You know someone out there who knows what they're doing. They're smart, they've got the right education, but for some reason, they just can't always get it together, or people don't respond well to them, or they're not moving up the ranks. Can everyone think of an example like that? That is the reason that it's so important for all of us to be thinking about emotional intelligence, or the emotional intelligence quotient. EQ is not directly related to IQ. In fact, while IQ is something that really remains constant, it's an ability we have that remains from age 15 to 50 pretty much the same. EQ is something that we can all work on. And that's what I want you all to walk away here today knowing. Not only is emotional intelligence vastly important and in many ways much more important than IQ, but it's also something that you can actively be working on and take with you to your internships, your future careers, and use just in your personal life. So today we'll go over what EQ is. We'll talk about the 4 skills involved in EQ, and then I'll tell you just a little bit about how you can start now for improving EQ and how you can take that and lead to more success in your life. So, what is emotional intelligence? To give you the textbook definition, if you will, it's the ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and use this awareness to manage behavior and relationships. All right, so as this tree shows, it's sort of this foundation. All right, and everyone's got that little seed in you, even if you're not really good at it yet. It's something that you can make grow over time. And even if you already have it, for the most part, there are all these extra little leaves you can keep adding to it by working and practicing. So, what can you do to work and practice? Well, first of all, be aware that it accounts for about 58% of all the skills you need for good job performance across any type of job. On top of that, something to keep in mind in case you're not already interested is that in a very wide study done by the authors of the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0, when they compared average salaries among high EQ folks and low EQ folks, there's a difference of $29,000 per year. All right? Now, don't go out after your internship and assume that you're going to be able to get $30,000 extra a year because we talked about this once in class. It requires practice, and you add to it over time. But at the end of the day, think about what that can be for you. On top of having satisfying personal relationships and professional careers, that's not a bad thing to take home with you, an extra $30,000 a year. So now that I've got your attention with that amount of money, let's talk about the actual core skills that go into it. So as you can see from this matrix, there are 4. And they are really broken down between the personal or inward-looking skills and the social or outward-looking skills. You can also break it up, if you look at the left versus the right, between what you see and observe and what you do. These are basic things that we're talking about all the time. Learning and doing. Being in the classroom, going out and taking action. And you're doing it on that personal and social level. So let's go through these each briefly. As we see from this comic, sometimes it can be kind of difficult to have some self-awareness. Sometimes you don't really want the truth, but it is so vitally important. I think we all know that person who shows up late to everything, but when someone talks about it, they say, "What? I'm never late." Or that person who says, "I am always calm, cool, and collected. It's really hard to get me upset, but anytime you've ever seen them in a heated debate, they're the ones screaming. For some reason, your self-awareness can be very difficult, but it's something that you can absolutely work on, and mostly it's just through a lot of reflection. So once you have that social awareness, we go into the self-awareness, we go into the self-management. All right, and self-management is taking that awareness of your own emotions and using it to stay flexible and drive your behavior in a positive way. Now, the reason that we sometimes feel this is really hard to do is basically because of how our brain is made up, how things travel through our brain. So when we receive a stimulus of some sort, it goes first to our limbic system. And that's where all the emotion and all the feeling is, and it's where you get excitement, or you get nervous, or you get upset. And then it takes its time, and it eventually travels on to the area of rational thought. So as you can see, there's a lot of value in learning how to take a deep breath, pause for a few seconds, and then move on once you've had a time to process what's happening and have some rational thought attached to what your reaction will be. Now that we've talked about how you can work on those skills personally, let's move on to some of the social awareness. So, if any of you have seen The Big Bang Theory, you know that Sheldon Cooper does not have social awareness. So, if that's what social awareness is not, it is the ability to accurately pick up on the emotions of other people and understand what's really going on with them. And you can understand how this could be useful, first of all, in your day-to-day life, with your significant other, or friends, or family. But then think about how it can be useful in your professional career. If you've got someone working with you who's having a really bad day and you think they're just screwing up, it might really be beneficial to understand what's actually going on with them. What are the emotions behind it? And I'm betting that you have a lot more success fixing that situation because of that social awareness. It's interesting, as I read through the book, I thought about the fact that in many ways children tend to have much better social awareness than adults. It's like we forget it over time or something. But the story that came to mind was actually me at my wedding. I was getting ready to go down the aisle. I'm back there with my bridesmaids, and I have a couple junior bridesmaids and flower girls. And I'm starting to get nervous, and my hands are shaking a little bit, and I feel the butterflies in my stomach. And my 7-year-old cousin, who's one of my flower girls, decided that that is a great time to come tell me one of her soccer camp stories. Now, I love her, but I cannot focus at this point. And I noticed that her sister, a couple years older, about 9 years old, who's one of my junior bridesmaids, is watching for a moment, and then she comes up and takes Nicole by the hand and says, "Come with me, I think Megan needs a moment." Out of all the people back there with me as I was getting ready for this huge event in my life and starting to feel a little nervous, out of everyone back there was the 9-year-old who had that social awareness, and on top of that, she knew some relationship management as well, because she took the action to come over and help me out and help me deal with my own emotions so that my day could be a nice day. So that relationship management is that final piece of the puzzle with those 4 skills. It's the ability to use the awareness of your own emotions and other people's emotions to manage interactions successfully. My 9-year-old cousin does it pretty well. So with these 4 skills, we can see how we can use self-awareness, social awareness, and then the things we do based on that awareness to work on a higher emotional intelligence. Now, how do you actually put that into action? As we've discussed, it seems like some people just have it. But as we've also discussed, it is something you can work on. Now, the Emotional Intelligence book gives a pretty good roadmap, but for the purpose of this class, and so you can take away something that you can easily start on right now, I want to boil it down to just 3 easy steps. First of all, you need a baseline measure. So that might be that you go and pay for the quiz that you can take. You might take a free one online. Or you might just talk to some family and friends to figure out what they think about your current level of emotional intelligence. Once you have that understanding, you can move on to the next point, which is picking a few strategies to work on, whether it's under 1 or 2 of these core skills or all 4 of them. But just find a few things that you know if you work on, it will help you become better at emotional intelligence. And once you've selected those, all it is practice, practice, practice. It takes time. And it is sort of just like any other muscle. You've got to do it a lot, over and over, repetition, to get that muscle memory. Now, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, it is a pretty simple read. and it has huge effects on what you can do going into the future. As a reminder, $29,000 a year. All right, emotional intelligence is a huge predictor of success. And I think it goes back to that idea of that quote that we have probably all heard. It's not what you do or what you say that people remember, but how you make them feel. So I really recommend that all of you consider checking this book out, borrowing it or buying it somewhere, and take the time to read it. I'm sure it would do wonders for you in your internship and in your future career. And it might also help things out at home as well. Thank you for your time. So one of the big things from early on, from my baseline presentation, was I felt like I didn't necessarily give the point up front and then just keep driving it home. So I really wanted to make sure that I was very clear up front and that I used multiple opportunities throughout the presentation to reiterate that it's important and why it's important to you, and just keep you very interested in listening. And then beyond that, I felt that two of the trends I saw, I mean, there's always room to work on all of these things, but two of the trends I saw were really my pausing and timing. So I am one of those people who can very easily get going quickly or just keep the same pace all the way through. So I wanted to focus on, at certain points, asking you to think about something and giving a pause so you could do that, or just slowing down my rate of speech for certain parts. And then the other thing was gesturing. I have a hard time doing really meaningful gestures, and I think that that's something that I'll have to continue working on. But I tried in certain portions of this presentation to kind of think of ways that I could just illustrate, a tree growing or whatever, but use some more meaningful motions, help you get the visualization down more so than I've done in the past. So those were the focus points I had for today.